Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the Bolshoi, because I recently spoke to their bass player to find out more about love, life, poetry, and all that other groovy stuff. It is the one and only Nick Chown who I spoke to, and this is the interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat that gets edited out, we get down to that exciting subject that was the early formative years. Nick, it's over to you.
When I was probably even before I was 10, I can't remember the years. Yeah, it probably was actually. The first single I ever bought was Daydream Believer by the Monkees.
Classic. That's a good one.
I didn't know it was a classic at the time. It's a good song and it's got a good hook, because they didn't actually write their songs, did they? There's some other guy whose name escapes me now, who was a really good songwriter. And I've always loved good songs. I don't care what genre it is, as long as it's a good song. It can be dance, folk, country. I don't care, as long as it's a good song. That's what I'm into. And T-Rex, into them big time.
Yes, and I can remember sort of my mum used to have Radio 2 on in the kitchen, so I sort of did hear a lot of that kind of soft pop, which again were good songs from Burt Bacharach and people like that, and you know, Cilla Black, and you thought, and
I love Cilla Black. She's got some great songs.
And also there was a show in the 60s called Cilla, and the opening track was Step Inside Love, which I thought was just amazing. And then decades later, I found out it was written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and I thought,
that's right, it's all right then.
So that's why it was such a dramatic song, and it's a classic. So
she's got a good pair of lungs on her, she used to.
She used to, and also, you know, she knew what good songs to cover, or people did.
Her management did, maybe, yeah. But she was managed by Brian Epstein as well, I think.
Yes, she had good connections in Liverpool, which was which was good. Did you
Scout Mafia? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, actually, there was a book about the. They got a lot of those managers from the 60s period. But then, did you have sort of parents who were musical at all and had...
Well, my mum had a piano, but I wouldn't call her musical. I hardly ever heard her playing it. She tried to shove me off onto piano lessons, which I regret now I didn't really follow through on. And that was it, really. My daughter's very musical, and coincidentally, she's up in Norwich as well, and she goes out and does solo gigs.
Right.
I don't know if you've been aware of her doing solo gigs around the Norwich area, but
I think I saw a post recently, and
you should check her out.
I will check her out. So, did she come up here for university and then?
She's still at uni. She's studying to be a doctor.
Excellent.
She's on a second degree now. She did some biomeds degree. Which they promised would get her a good job, but it didn't. So she's now on a second degree and actually got onto a doctor's thing. She's into the third or fourth year now.
Right.
So she's in the what's it called? The University of East Anglia.
That's right, the UEA. There.
So she does gigs around there, and she does gigs around London and around Kent. But I'm very proud of her, because, you know, it takes a lot of balls to get up there just with an electric piano.
Well, absolutely.
And sing your own songs to nobody who's there to see you. But she's been doing it now a long time. She's developed now. She's learned her stagecraft by doing the hard graft.
It's got to be done.
She's got the stage personality now. So I'm very proud of her.
Yes, this is it. God, this is going to be good. Yeah. Do you ever get tempted to do a little duet?
I don't know. Sometimes when I'm drunk, I make jokes about forming a band, but I don't know. Maybe one day it'll happen.
Yes, sitting around the piano, singing. So when did you sort of go from like listening to probably Top of the Pops or watching Top of the Pops and listen to Radio 1 to thinking, right, I'm going to get an instrument and and whereabouts did you grow up, by the way?
Right, I grew up in a town called Swanley in northwest Kent.
Yes.
It's right on the boundary where the M20 meets the M25. So it's quite high up in northwest Kent. It's almost London. But it could be 20 years away from London as well, as far as fashion is concerned.
Yeah.
And to tell you how I started out, my best and oldest mate who I've known all my life and still do. When he was about 13, there was a guy around the corner who used to make his own electric guitars. And he made, obviously, a 6-string electric guitar for my mate. And it was a green metal flake and all that because it was around the glam area. And then I went, oh, I want a guitar too. Right, well, I can't get an ordinary guitar because Gary's got 6 strings. I'll get one of those bass guitar things. So he built me one. It was gold metal flake on the neck. You know the dots that you normally have on the neck. It had hearts, very glam. Anyway, he built me that for £20, and it took me 6 weeks. No, I used to get £1 a week to paper round. 20, nearly half a year to pay for that, doing paper round. Yes. And that was it. And then we were in school bands together, doing covers and stuff like that. Yes. Various different bands. And a lot of the bands, my bedroom was on the ground floor, and we used to rehearse there and annoy all the neighbours. Yes. Actually, I'm surprised the neighbours didn't throw bricks through the window. But
and did you get guitar lessons, bass lessons at that stage?
No.
You just played along to records.
Yeah.
The classic, actually. So when you got to 16, did you leave school at that stage?
Yeah, I left school at 16, although everyone was saying, I'm going to sixth form. But I got an apprenticeship with what was then Post Office Telecommunications, which now become BT. And I'm supposed to become a telecommunications expert, but they threw me out after a year because I was turning up. Because I was doing the same stuff that I was doing at school, taking time off and and they didn't quite like that very much. Yeah. So I got kicked out after a year of that. Various different jobs. And then punk came along.
Did that change everything?
Oh, for me, yeah. Yeah, because before that, if you wanted a real band, and you were trying to copy like Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd, you needed thousands of worth of equipment. And I was never the greatest musician in the world. And you also had to be a fucking great musician as well. And then punks brought it all down to basics. You just need an amp, a guitar, and the attitude, the energy. And took songwriting back to basics because it was all getting Genesis-ish,
This is true. This is true. Well, I had an older brother who was 7 years older, and he was Mr. Prog Rock, so I loved it.
Yeah. I liked it because that was the only thing around. But when punk came along, it made me go, of course, this is it. And it, there's a lot of T-Rex was a bit like that. It just took it back to the basics, and that energy and that attitude. I mean, as I told you, I live in Swanley, and I cut my hair short and bought a straight pair of jeans because everyone was wearing flares. And I walked down the high street, and mothers with their prams were crossing the road to get out of the way of me. And it was like, my God. And all I had was short hair and a straight pair of jeans. But then as I developed the look, it got even worse. And there were only 2 punks in Swanley. Used to go to the local discos or whatever, persuade the DJ to play the Sex Pistols, go around, just the 2 of us, go outside for a cigarette and get beaten up.
There you go.
And that was it. You had to suffer for your art.
Yes, because I had a friend who lived in Swanley, and we used to visit, and we used to sort of go down, Dartford Tunnel or Bridge, and then sort of just swing a right, go around a few corners, and suddenly there where we were. And he backed onto a nice field, and then there was the M25 right next to it. So it was a kind of.
I'm going to do some name dropping here. When I was 18 or whatever, in a punk band called Homicide, local Swanley band, I was the only actual punk because the guitarist had long hair. And I can't really remember the look of the other 2, but the keyboard player was a gentleman called Mark Steele, who's now gone on to be, the international, I don't know about international, but nationally famous comedian.
Yes.
Name dropping.
Well, absolutely. No, I did an interview with him last year when he was doing.
Oh, really? I bet he didn't mention me.
No, but I can't remember what his childhood was like. I can't. Yeah, it was something I'd had to have a look.
Well, he was keyboard player in a punk band called Homicide.
Right, there you go. But this is a good education. And at that stage, and I suppose, did you sort of get influenced because of that South London scene? There was obviously Susan the Banshees, and David Bowie came from sort of South London as well.
Beckenham,
did that all start to filter into your consciousness at this stage?
Well, it's not necessarily South London. It was just the whole punk thing. But you had to, like if you went to when they started playing the bigger places like the Lyceum or whatever. Like I went to see the Clash or whatever at the Lyceum. It was you go up there by train, but the last train would have gone back before the gig had finished. So you used to go back to Victoria Station, and they used to park the trains there. So you just used to kip on the train. Right. And they let you do that at that time. I can't imagine they'd let you do that now. And then you wake up in the morning, the train pulls out. And one time I remember waking up and the train was pulling out of Hastings or Folkestone or something, and it had gone and was on its way back. But that's what you had to do in those days. You had to kip on the train overnight. And
yes. And did you go? And did you start going to kind of those free festivals in Windsor and places like that, or
no? What punk free festivals?
Well, not so punk. They're more hippie kind of gatherings.
No. We were punks, man. It's like
you didn't mix. You didn't do the free festival movement at that stage.
No. And I probably would have got beaten up if I turned up in all my punk regalia as well.
Right. Yes. So then, as we sort of got to sort of 79, Thatcher gets in. Then we have the Falkland War, the miners' strike, Greenham Common. We thought we were all going to get blown up. What happens for you during this sort of early 80s period?
Well, it's just carried on. Then mod came around, and I dabbled with mod for about a month. No, this is not me. Went back to punk. Then the sort of new romantics came out. Yes. And the hairstyles really, a lot of them were just sort of longer versions of the spiky look. So that evolved, and I got into wearing full makeup to go out of the house. I wouldn't walk out of the house without full makeup.
Right.
And go down the local pub, and yet again there'd be always one person who wanted to beat you up for that, because it's not like you're hanging out in some trendy club like the Blitz or something in town.
I was going to say, did you go to the Blitz club?
No.
And hang out with Boy
George? No.
Right. No. Did the music start to sort of filter into you?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, punk itself developed. I mean, if it wasn't for punk, you wouldn't have had all those other genres. Punk was the thing that broke the back of the dinosaur, and everything else started evolving out of punk, like the new romantic scene, etc. And it's just a gradual evolvement, and it evolved into another genre like goth and da. But it all came from punk originally.
Yes, absolutely.
So.
And there was a fantastic post-punk. I mean, I suppose post-punk had the kind of sort of slightly more interesting sounds and bands.
Yeah. It got more grown up, if you like.
Yes.
But you had to go through that. It was like an adolescent, the naughty teenager, and then you grow up a little bit, and the punk people who started playing when they were punks, they sort of learned how to play, and you don't want to play three chords for the rest of your life.
No. And I know from talking to a few people who were in those early bands, the punk period, like, I don't know, Andy Blade from Eater, I think he was getting really bored of the audience. I think he looked at his audience and went, oh my God, this isn't what punk was about, was like, actually, I've had enough of this, and so quite a few people, if they didn't make that musical jump, they just kind of gave up, because it's like, I don't want to be spat at anymore and have things thrown at me.
That was the whole point. Where did the spitting come from? That probably was one person in one gig doing a spit, got reported by the national press, and then you get all these people who decide they want to be punks and go, oh, I'm supposed to spit at someone.
Yes,
it was not about that.
It's terrible. Yes. Uncalled for. But then sort of 83 time, this is exciting. The Smiths appear, and suddenly indie pop becomes a little bit more of a soundtrack to our lives. So what was it? Were you still playing music at this stage? Or were you playing in local bands?
83. I was in a band, trying to think when we actually formed it. We were in it for about 5 years. When did the Bolshoi start? Around about
85.
85. Oh my God. Sorry. Oh, hang on, I'll just take this. Can you just pause it a sec?
Oh yeah, blimey. Wait a minute, I'm hitting pause.
Okay.
Cool. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that time, yes. So I was just saying, were you were you still playing in bands just before this sort of...
I joined a band called Praxis, Praxis, and the other boys were sort of around the Bexley Heath area, and we were doing sort of gothy stuff. And we were together, as I say, about 4 or 5 years. We went through 4 guitarists. The other 3 of us stayed together. And we got quite popular. There used to be gigs, regular gigs once. Well, it used to be at the Ship in Plumstead. And quite a few bands played there. And then that's closed. And then the promoter, Gary Morgan, I think his name was, he started promoting gigs at the Cellar Bar at Thames Poly in Woolwich.
Right.
And he had some bands down there, like Skeletal Family and da-da-da-da-da. He once had the Alarm there at the Big Hall. I think we supported them. But anyway, we were quite popular in Woolwich. We were big in the Woolwich and Plumstead area. So we were pulling about 300 people a night. We did a few gigs at the Marquee and the 101 Club and stuff like that, but we weren't really going anywhere. And this leads in to at the end of us, we started having a support band called, go on, drum roll, the Bolshoi.
Right. They were your support band.
Yeah. And I think it was 2 or 3 gigs. So if anyone thinks I was the actual original bass player of the Bolshoi, that's not true. Although a lot of biogs say that I was. They had another guy who came out of another local band called Aquila. I can't remember his name.
Was that Graham Cox?
Yeah, it's Graham. Yeah, Graham was his name. And he had sort of fluffy blondie hair. And I was watching the Bolshoi and I was just blown away by the songs, the attitude, the way Trevor used to sort of ad-lib. You know, most people when they finish a song go, thanks very much, the next song's called this. If they say anything at all, Trevor would yak away for about 5 minutes about anything and da-da-da-da. And he was quite provocative of the audience, where it's not just people pleasing. And I just thought there's something special about this. Got a feeling about this. This is special.
Yes.
So it's just sort of, we tried to keep it quiet at the time because we didn't want everyone to hate us. But I basically made overtures to them saying, look, maybe, we should get together. And they were going, they were quite impressed because they thought I was the most sort of forceful and arrogant one out of my band as well. So I basically left my band after 4 or 5 years and joined them. And
what was it like stepping into a band that had already been slightly established?
I had 9 days to learn the set before the first gig that we did together, which was a bit daunting, but I managed to bluff it through a bit.
Yes. And
it was weird. It was weird because I suppose in Praxis I was a sort of I wasn't the singer, but I was, I suppose, the most dominant personality there. They probably disagree, but where it's obviously when you join a band like Trevor and also Jan, and they've got very strong personalities, suddenly you're not the alpha male, if you like.
Yes.
So that was a culture shock for me as well, which I had to learn to adjust to. But yeah.
And did you and Jan, because obviously he's the drummer, did you click quite quickly musically?
Yes, musically we did. Later on, when we were going on sort of tours in different countries, I'd room with Jan at hotels, and Trevor would room with Paul once he joined the band. And we were working hard for a couple of years. For a couple of years, we were doing something like 200 gigs a year, which is pretty hard work. And also we used to drink hard as well. We weren't choir boys, so sometimes spilt over. So yeah, I mean, in general, I get on with Jan, but there were times, it got a bit physical.
Yes, and you were a three-piece at that stage, weren't you?
Yes, we were, and we did the first sort of mini album, Giants, somewhere on the Welsh border, I think, in some studio. It was a converted chapel. And any keyboards on that were Trevor.
Right.
And I don't know, it wasn't even our idea to get a keyboard player. It was our managers, I suppose, to get those keyboard sounds when we were playing live. But there was no auditions. There were no, we need a keyboard player. One time, our manager rocked up and said, "This is Paul. He's your new keyboard player." Like, oh, okay.
Right. Blimey.
Weird. It was weird.
Who was your manager?
This guy called Pete McCarthy. Well, it was a partnership. It was him and his partner. It was Nicky D'Souza. They were both our managers.
Yes.
They're now married, but at the time they weren't.
Nice. God, showbiz. Yeah, because it's kind of so you're in an indie band, but you already got a manager. That seemed like they were going to take a big punt on the band being sort of major players.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, that was I suppose another thing that sort of impressed me, that they had management at that time. I just felt there was something. Always been quite good at telling good. Like I said before, I like songs. I'd hear songs sometimes and go, "That's going to be huge." Like it's easy. People can do it in hindsight, obviously. But the first time I ever heard Dexys Midnight Runners do "Come On Eileen," I thought Dexys Midnight Runners, nobody really knew who they were before that. That song is going to fly. It's not even the sort of genre I'm normally into.
No.
But I just knew, I had a feeling. And I can't remember what I was talking about now. What was I rambling on about?
Good song. No, because I mentioned about
song. Yeah.
Yes, and having a manager, for a three-piece indie band who weren't even on a label at that stage. I just was quite impressed because I thought, well, there must have been a lot of bands about at that stage, and already people were looking at you as the next big thing.
Well, that was his job, really, to try and get us a deal. So
yes,
which he did.
And this is with, was it Beggars Banquet situation?
Well, it's all part of the same thing, Situation 2, 4AD, Beggars Banquet. It's all part of the same thing. I don't know why they split it up like that. I think Giants was on Situation 2, I think.
Yes.
And then that was the whole point of that. We hadn't signed the deal then. That was just a sort of one-off. Well, that and Sob Story, just one-offs. And then we'd see how we go. But the actual record deal proper was signed, Friends 5-album deal, and then we moved on to Beggars Banquet. I don't know why they did that, but yeah. So we had like the Cult Stablemates and Pete Murphy and Gary Newman and.
Yes, I mean, yeah, it was quite. I suppose it had a slightly gothic kind of image, didn't it? Beggars.
Yeah. Well, we got lumped in with all the gothic stuff, and we did a lot of the gigs we started out with. We were gigging with all the gothy bands. I don't really think. Well, maybe some of our early stuff was that gothy, but
yes.
But we were in that crowd. That's the gigs we were doing. We supported the Cult. We supported Lords of the New Church, Sex Gang Children,
the March Violets.
Yeah.
Classics.
And did we support them or did they support us? I can't remember. Yeah, but we played with them anyway. All those sort of bands. So, those were the gigs when we started out that we were supporting. And we supported Spear of Destiny, and that was a tour that we did supporting them. Did a tour supporting Peter Murphy in the UK, and we did, prior to supporting Peter Murphy in the UK, we supported Love and Rockets in the US.
Right.
So we did the whole Bauhaus in 2 tours.
Yes, because actually with Pete Murphy, there was he had a brilliant band, didn't he? The 100 Men, who I've interviewed quite a few of them, and they were just amazing musicians.
Have you spoken to Paul Statham?
Yes.
Right. Now, Paul Statham, this is how incestuous it is. Paul used to live in a house with various people, one of which was the keyboard player, Paul Statham. So that's how incestuous it is.
Paul Statham, yes, I do. And
he's still writing songs, isn't he?
He is. I know the guitarist he sort of was from a slightly different decade, but I can't even remember his name now. But they had a good sound. His first couple of solo albums were
He's
brilliant.
got a great voice, Pete Murphy.
Yes, it was.
He said I had nice eyebrows.
I would have felt quite chuffed.
He actually, because I told him I was a fan because I'd seen Bauhaus 5 times. He went, "Oh, do you know how to play Kick in the Eye?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "Right, well, you can come on and do the encore Kick in the Eye with us." Final gig that we do, which I think was Whole University. So I'm up on stage with Peter Murphy playing Kick in the Eye. It was a band that I used to be a fan, and it was just blew my mind away.
Yes, you could have made that. Would have been like a Hollywood movie, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So was your memories of the first album generally good? This is Giants, isn't it? Which was almost like a mini LP.
Yes, that was how it was described. It was, but that was all sort of our early stuff. And we didn't really have a producer. We just did it ourselves with an engineer. The engineer obviously threw in a few ideas. And as you say, that was just the 3 of us. And it was done on a budget. I think we had a week to do it. It was fine. There's a couple of songs on there I really love. I still love Happy Boy.
Yes.
Maybe because of the bass line, I don't know. But it's a good song again, and I think it's even now it stands the test of time, and that you probably could class under the term gothic, I suppose. And then we made a video for that, but no, some people said they couldn't play it because if you see right at the end, there's a boy rolling over and he's got a gun in his hand. They said, "Oh, we can't show a video with a boy with a gun in his hand." So it's these sort of silly things that harm your career,
Yes. I've been watching some of your videos. They're really excellent. There's a brilliant one on a roundabout. I can't remember, but the one where someone's on a sofa and
Sunday morning, yeah.
That's such a good idea. It just made me laugh, actually.
Do you want to know what football ground that was filmed at?
Yes.
That was Fulham.
Fulham, right.
And the train station was, I can't remember now, one of the North London ones.
Yes. And was somebody on a lorry just going, because it was quite high up, wasn't it?
It was actually a crane.
Okay.
The 3 of us standing on the crane while Trevor's sitting there. But to be honest, we got a bit miffed about that video because it's obviously Trevor just sitting on the sofa all the time and occasional shots of us. So we all got bored by night, so we went home.
Yes.
And that's why you'll probably find there's more of us in the next video because words were had about that.
Yes, we're not the backing band. So no. Yes, then when you came to do the second album, you obviously had Paul. This is the 4 piece.
Yes.
Had the dynamic changed quite a lot with another member?
Yes, I think it had. But most of the songs were written for friends pre-Paul. So he didn't have, I don't think he even had rights to some of it. But yeah, of course, it's a dynamic, because with 3, there's so many ways that you can pull, it's mathematics, isn't it?
Yes.
It changed. Paul he's a different character altogether. He's Leeds, comes from Leeds. He's got this weird sense of humour. Sometimes I get and sometimes I don't. And he just does weird stuff. And he's completely different. He's off the wall.
Right.
Yeah. But I ended up, they've all gone to the States now. They all live in the States. But Paul was the last one to go to the States. And before he went to the States, I was living in a flat with him. And yeah, I like Paul, but it was weird. You're right. The dynamic changes. You can't deny it.
But this was kind of the mid-80s, is a glorious period for sort of like slightly independent music. And your sound, your band are just kind of absolutely right there, aren't they? We've had the Smiths, then we have all the bands from Australia, like the Go-Between, the Triffids, then there's No, the Wolfhounds, June Bride. So, and then you have, the Chameleons, Sad Lovers and Giants. So, the Bolshoi fit in really well. So did you feel when you went to record Friends, that you're on a sort of an upward trajectory at this stage.
Yes, because that was the first proper album with a proper budget. And we had a producer. Again, God, I'm terrible with names. He was the guy who used to produce Van Morrison. Can't remember his name now. But again, Pete, our manager, who was very heavily into Van Morrison, this is the guy who's going to produce you. So he produced us, and the reaction to that album was from, people that you know and whatever, fans that actually talked to you, was that they liked it, but they thought it didn't have the edge or whatever that we had when we played live. It was a bit too polished,
right?
A bit too smooth. And we took that on board when we did the second album, or we tried to. If you want me to talk about the second album now, I will. Because
just going to Friends though, did you?
Yeah,
I mean, because that does have a lot of classics on it, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like
good
Away,
songs. Yes.
Sunday Morning, which obviously everyone's going to say, can you remember how that came about? How did that come about? Sunday Morning.
I'll tell you some stories about Sunday Morning. The way we create songs is different each time. Sometimes maybe I'll come up with a bass riff and we jam around that, or maybe Jan will come up with a drum riff, or maybe Paul will come up with a keyboard line, and sometimes Trevor will do the same, or he'll come with what he thinks is a packaged song. And he sort of did that with Sunday Morning, but the original bass line that he wanted to do was all funky, slappy stuff. I was like, no, you can't do that. You've got to pull it back. So I wrote the bass line, obviously, which is the one that you hear now. And then there's another thing, the middle eight, where Trevor plays the guitar solo.
Yeah.
Which he was just messing around, but he's going, it's a bit too Dire Straits. And I said, do you remember our plan when we started out? Our plan was to rip off bits from all the other bands like David Bowie, blah, 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 T-Rex, Gary Glitter even. Yes.
We love him.
Yes, okay. And combine them into a sound of our own. And there was a certain band a few years after us that completely ripped off a band called the Beatles and did very nicely out of it, called Oasis. So I said that was our ethos. So it doesn't matter if it sounds Dire Straits-ish. That's what we started out saying we were going to do. So that classic guitar solo has been played worldwide, down in Brazil and Argentina and America and we stuck with. So that's how the song came about. And if you listen to, there was a box set came out. Beggars decided to bring out a box set, 5 CD box set in 2015.
Yeah.
Which is a bit hard when you've only got 2.5 albums. So they've included loads of demos and live tracks and stuff like that. So if you listen to the demo, it's still got the same guitar solo on it. Even though, the producer came along, and producers are supposed to change things around, change arrangements, etc., etc. But yeah, that was Sunday Morning. And that went on. That was the song that got really popular in South America. I think it went to number 2 or something like that.
Well, I'm not surprised. It is a classic song, isn't it? I mean, it does still sound. And the same with Away is. Oh yeah, sorry. After you.
The lyrics as well. I love the lyrics, because it's all anti-Catholic church basically. Well, Trevor grew up as a Catholic. I'm not, but it's all about that. How we kneel down, blah 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 blah. Good lyrics. Trevor can write some very, very good lyrics or some appalling lyrics, but that was some of his better ones.
Yes. And your opening track, Away, what was how can you remember how that sort of came about?
Honestly, but I can tell you who it's written about. I think I better not actually. It's a bit too personal.
Oh, so close. Perhaps later.
Yeah. I can't even remember when we actually started playing, because it wasn't. Someone recently on YouTube found a gig, very early gig, when it was just the 3 of us playing in Switzerland, and I looked at it and said, songs. I don't think there was any songs we were playing then that actually made it, or maybe one that made it onto the albums or whatever. So it was really early. We were very, very raucous, very punky in a way. But when did we write Away? I can't remember how it even came about. I think it came about as jamming around at a rehearsal.
I know you. Yeah, I mean, it's. Oh, I just remembered something that I saw today, which you'll probably get bored of and yawn. But there was an article I saw which had 10 obscure but brilliant 80s bands you should have heard, and obviously the Bolshoi are right in there actually. But you probably hear this story all the time, don't you?
Well, there's a Facebook page that says the best band dedicated to us, called The Best Band That Nobody's Ever Heard Of, and I quite like that. But I've just seen Trevor's brought out a new thing with the Bolshoi Brothers thing where he's written some preamble saying that he doesn't think that's good. But I do, I'm not afraid to disagree with Trevor.
No. But that's but this is more obscure bands, and when you look at the list, you'll go, "Oh, yes, that's fair enough." Because...
Oh no, we were obscure. We are obscure. No one's ever heard of us.
But slowly, these days. But I think slowly you get more, I don't know, recognition, really, aren't you? I mean, Sunday Morning's got over 9 million plays on Spotify. Jesus, that's amazing. And
we still get about 1 million streams a year.
Yes, and 100,000 monthly listens. So that's just on Spotify. So obviously the band are getting picked up quite a bit, actually.
Well, I'd love it if somebody did a cover of one of our songs and made a hit. Well, Taylor Swift ain't going to do a cover, is she? Because she writes all her own stuff. But or someone used some of our stuff, for a film soundtrack.
Yes,
I would love it. One, to get some more money, but just to get some more, is recognition the right word? I don't know. Possibly.
Yes.
But even if we'd just been a one-hit wonder, it would have been nice. You know what I mean?
Kajagoogoo. I mean, I'm not saying they were great, but the bass player was quite good.
He was good, yeah, very good actually.
Yes, but then I mean, so when Friends came out, was there a sense of disappointment with the sound and the reception that you got from it?
Not at the time. For example, we went over to the States to do our first ever American tour, and we landed in LA, and we got in a cab, and the radio's on, and the radio's playing Away on the radio. Oh my God!
High fives.
So this is it, boys. We're on the road. We made it. No, I mean, Away is Away. It's, again, if you listen to that 5 CD box track, there's a demo version of that, and it didn't change that much. And we got plays on Radio 1, and Mike Reed played it on Radio 1. And he had the morning show at the time. Unfortunately, he didn't play it enough.
Yes. I guess you were sort of falling through that little crack, weren't you, between mainstream and the indie alternative John Peel show, weren't you? Yeah, well,
I think we were too commercial, if that's the right word, or too poppy for John Peel. He didn't like us at all. He never played us.
No, and there is, I mean, there were bands, I know there were some bands that he just felt like, no, I don't need to worry about them, or they'll be fine elsewhere. They don't need my kind of attention.
Well, I think he just didn't like us. That was it. It can't be everybody's cup of tea, can you? So
no, but then, I mean, it did, I must admit the sound is fantastic. So yes. So what was your American experience like when you landed there? Did you get good audiences and good reception?
Well, the first tour, we were on a label, because Beggar's Banquet, I don't know if you know what it does, it licenses you out to other record labels around the world.
Yes.
So in America, we were licensed out to IRS Records,
Oh, Miles Copeland.
Yes, manager of the police, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
He invited us out to a barbecue at Universal Studios in the back lot. So we went to that. So we're in America. We've got Miles Copeland's, we're on Miles Copeland's label, and our agent in America at the time was Ian Copeland.
Right, he's the brother who does the cooking, doesn't he?
Yeah. So all we needed was Stuart rock up and do some drums for us, and we'd had the whole set. So it was all good. You know, he was really into us. Crowds were small, 300 or whatever, and we didn't do it, in a big tour bus and all that sort of stuff. We just went round. We had a little equivalent of a transit van, American equivalent, to take the gear round in, and we went round in what they call a station wagon.
Yes,
which is just like a big estate car, really. And we did that. It wasn't all glam or whatever, and it was hard graft and long drives. But we did 6-week tour of that. First 2 weeks of which we hung out in LA, and then gradually went across the country. But it was a little bit disillusioning when, say, you've got to say New York and you're doing a radio interview, and the guy's going, "Hey, when you guys coming to LA?" We're like, "We were there 2 weeks ago," that sort of stuff. So that's more of the promotional thing, and it's a bit Spinal Tap-ish.
yes.
There's quite a few Spinal Tap moments where the dressing rooms is literally half a mile away from the stage and all that sort of stuff. I can relate to that so much. It's so true.
Yes.
But it was just getting to learn. It's not the same as over here.
Yes.
It's so vast, but everything was generally good.
Yes, because most bands that I've done interviews with, America often breaks them. That's the moment they go, "We did America," and then they say, "We came home and broke it. We split it because we
split the Pistols, isn't it?"
But yes, but most bands just go, "My God, we were in this transit van with these other members of the band. We were going to kill each other substance abuse and drinking."
It does get like that. You need a strong liver, and strong, fists sometimes. It is emotional, and it's draining. You're sitting in a van, probably driving for 12 hours or whatever to go to the next gig. You do the gig, and then because you've got the adrenaline, you want to have a drink. So then you're drinking probably too much, and you're there till 4 o'clock in the morning, where you've got to get up and do the same thing again. It's bound to be times when, a lot of the time, we have a ball, but other times when tempers fray.
Yes, it does happen. I would imagine. I know.
Oh yeah, it does.
There was I think he was the bass player of Voice of the Beehive, and he said he came to the point, they'd been big and around the world. Then he realized it had got to the point where he'd realized he'd been talking to a mirror for about 10 minutes and went, "Actually, I need to now get off this and get myself sobered up, because it's not good that I've just been having a long conversation with the mirror and I didn't realize it was me." So yes, it made he said it, you don't know where you are.
It's surreal. I mean, when you get back to the UK the first time after 6 weeks, it's like landing on another planet. And when you land in America, it's a total, utter culture shock. It is like landing in a different world. And then you could divide America up into 5 little mini worlds. The East Coast is completely different to the West Coast. And then Midwest, South, the Southern American states, all completely different attitudes. And then you come back to the UK and it's all grey and
yes. And everyone thought you've had an amazing time and are now millionaires. But
I can't remember if it was the first tour or the second tour. We'd done a few gigs with Doctor and the Medics, came back after a tour, and they were number one. Like, how the flippity hell did that happen? They were doing the same gigs as us, 6 weeks ago, and came back and they're number one.
Spirit in the Sky.
Yeah.
There you go. It was fantastic. I did an interview with the I can't remember his name, but he used to DJ, didn't he, at the at one of those little clubs called, oh yes, that's it, Alice in Wonderland. He was part of that scene, wasn't he? Dandies.
Don't know that scene at all. Where was that?
That was London in the early 80s.
No, don't know it.
Yes. But he was kind of, one of the kind of main players. But yes, Doctor and the Medics was managed by Miles as well, wasn't he?
Were they?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. He has one of those great stories. Okay, I can't remember his name, but I should do, shouldn't I? Where the rest of the band have just gone and wandered off, and Miles does his kind of, give me a fucking hit. I can't hear a fucking hit on this album. It's like, okay, we'll cover this song. Okay, and the rest, But he said it was real rock and roll showbiz moment with Miles screaming, I can't hear a hit on this record. So there you go. That's life, isn't it?
It gets even more incestuous as my little musical career goes on, but I'll tell you that in sort of chronological order.
Yes. So you come back, and then you've got the sort of second proper album to make. So this is 87, which personally I put down as one of the great years of music, because frankly, not every, but there's a lot of brilliant records released in 87, aren't there?
Do you like the second album?
It's different, isn't it? It's very different. I do love TV Man. I have to say that is it's one that I think is brilliant.
Well, I get my own little middle-aged solo vocal solo on that, don't I? So
yeah, but it's not one that I've kind of gripped. So what was the next process of the band at this stage?
Okay, the second album. Now remember, I'd said that everybody said, first album's good songs, but not quite got that energy, etc. as live. Well, it wouldn't, because you got a producer polishing it up. So we said, right, we're going to produce ourselves this time, because we're going to try and get the same sound, or similar sound to how we are live. And that was the ethos of the second album. But as I understood it, we went away to a residential studio in it's either Norfolk or Suffolk, I think. Norfolk or Suffolk. Anyway, up in East Anglia. And locked ourselves away there. And then this is sort of when you were asking when Paul had an influence in the songwriting. This is just me. It's my view, my truth, you use that phrase, of the second album. To me, it's too much keyboard orientated and very little guitar. It's certainly not got a live feel to it. And we're doing stuff like spending £1,000 a day hiring in Fairlight computers. The things that Frankie Goes to Hollywood use, all that, and it was all computer and I wasn't happy at the time, because it wasn't what we said we were going to do. Now, some people like it, and there are some good songs on there, but it wasn't what we said we were going to do. And so I particularly at that time nearly had a sort of minor breakdown. I had an American girlfriend at the time, and I was sort of crying down the phone to her, going, this is not going the way I was supposed to do. And to me at the time, because I've always been sort of into rock. Well, you've heard I was a punk, etc. I always liked the sort of rockier edge to things. And like I say, there's some good songs there. I remember one time having an argument with Trevor about the Cracking Smile song. Sort of similar song, I suppose, to Pardon Me, slow, and it gradually grows. And I said to him, look, the vocals you're doing on this are not as good as the vocals you did on the demo. The vocals you did had so much emotion, the voice was cracking, and it sort of went with the song. Like, I better do it again because Nick says we're going to do it again. So he did it again, and it was better, but it wasn't ever as good as the demo. And I wish I had the demo in my possession so I could prove it to people, because the vocals he did on the demo were incredible vocals. And that was it. And then we're off on tour, touring this new album. And second or third tour, we're in the States, and Trevor wanted to do more of that album and play less of the first album and previous stuff. it's not a good thing. People don't turn up to get a whole album of stuff they don't know. It was too much. It was too much of that stuff.
Yes.
And as I say, not much guitar on it, really. If you listen through it, and Trevor's a great guitarist, and I love guitar, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And as I say, there are some good songs, but not really what we said we were going to actually do.
It sounds a bit like what Motorhead had with their third album, because they had a very good producer, then they got rid of him because they all were getting a bit drunk and stoned, or speed. And then Fast Eddie produces the third album, and he doesn't like doing it, and it doesn't sound that good. And then they tour it, and it hasn't properly come out, and they want to play it to the audience who don't know it, and the gigs aren't going well. The band are getting more fed up, and then Eddie suddenly finds himself kind of the odd man out, and it's kind of the end of the road for him. So it was, we had
to I don't know, after a couple of weeks or whatever, we had to redo it and go, look, we've got to play more of the old stuff. It's what people want. You can't just throw out all the old stuff and go, oh, this is the new stuff, and you've got to lump it. Well, they don't lump it. You're playing bigger gigs on the back of the first album. That's why you're playing bigger gigs. And then you can't, if you're playing the bigger gigs, they come to hear the first album because they like it. And you can't just go, right, full speed in the second album and give them one or two of the old album. It just doesn't work. And we proved it doesn't work, but at least the penny dropped with us after a week or two. It might have been a wee bit longer, but
yes, because you got a bonus track on it. I'm depressed. We're all going to die. Was that the sort of mood of the session for that stage?
Possibly. I can't remember. Yeah, that's some of our B-sides is just sort of jokey, messing around, semi-serious stuff. For example, West in London Town, we were in Abbey Road Studios recording something. I think we've recorded Please there. We went out down the pub, got back at 11 o'clock and just picked up our instruments and said, oh, let's just do this sort of jokey country and western song. And it was recorded live with us all drunk trying to do a country and western song. 1 or 2 takes, I think. And that went in the top 40 in Poland. And we had to go out and do a gig in Poland before the Iron Curtain had come down, playing to 4,000 people on the back of that.
God, that's amazing.
It's weird, isn't it?
You were big in Krakow, so, which is excellent. But then, but then, I mean, it's kind of interesting because at 87, the year, not the age, it was kind of a bit of a watershed moment because for me, the Smiths are huge during that decade, 83 to 87. The Smiths there, each album seems to get better and better and stronger. They don't veer off from their sound, but it does. The songs and the guitar playing is brilliant, and the rhythm section. And then they break up, and then also Ecstasy comes along. So there's a bit of a new. I don't know. There's a new wave of 16, 18-year-olds who are starting to want their sound. So how do you, as a band, regroup to think, right, we're going to get our third album, which is going to be Country Life? What was it like at sort of 87, 88 for you guys?
I think the penny dropped with all of us, no matter that some people might say it never did. That it wasn't very guitar orientated, and that's what we started up being. You can't just suddenly become a keyboard orientated band. I remember one time we all went to Wembley to see Pink Floyd, and that just blew our minds away. The sound. I don't know if have you ever seen Pink Floyd live?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God. Because they don't move around on stage, they put all their energy into light shows and the sound. And so they go, and you might have this helicopter sound, but it'll go all the way around Wembley Stadium and round your heads and all this. And remember, this was in the 80s.
Yes. It
was just incredible. And how David Gilmour can get so much emotion out of playing one note on a guitar. I'm not going to do the rest of it for you. No. And it just blows your mind. And it affected us all. and we were going in writing demo stroke writing phase, and we locked ourselves for a week or two in what was a converted scout hut in Croydon, 16-track recording. And again, that stuff is on that 5-track album. And I think out of the stuff we wrote and recorded there, at least 6, I reckon, maybe more, songs are valid. Really good songs, back to basics, got the edge, more guitar. Some of the lyrics that Trevor's got in some of those songs are the best lyrics he's ever written. And I would be proud to release that as it is now as an album. No getting a producer in, redoing it all or whatever. I think it's valid. Everyone I've played it to recently says it's still contemporary now. It doesn't feel dated, or some of it, especially some of the lyrics he's written, you know, everything's done for you today. So we're talking about science and technology and servants of technology. That was 30 years ago he wrote that.
Right.
And what was it? Oh, there's another great line, another song that Trevor wrote, which I really like. It's like, I wish I could communicate, but all I do is talk. That is brilliant. That is just absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
I don't know if you've listened to it. Have you listened to that stuff?
What, Country Life?
Yeah, that on that 5 CD box stuff.
Yeah, I've listened to bits of it. And then there's also The Voyage of Peculiarities as well, isn't it?
That one, yeah, that's more throwaway stuff. That's more sort of drunken, even playing around in studios, weird stuff. And the live stuff that we did at Town and Country Club.
Yes.
But that Country Life thing, as I say, you're not going to get all of them brilliant, but I think at least 6 are. Do you want me to call out the ones that I think are good?
Tell us. Everything is done.
Okay.
For you. Yes, tell us.
Yeah, everything is done for you today is one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a moment. Hang on, because my memory's going. I've got it. Hang on. Here it is. Oh. So sad. Another one's World in Action. Country Life itself. Out There in the Distance. We've already Out There in the Distance. Castaway. Oh, it's the right one. I don't know.
That's 5.
Okay. Out There in the Distance. I said Castaway, hadn't I?
Yes.
There's the one at the end, sounds very Arabian. Last Chance for a Slow Dance. I really, really like the sound that we've got there because it's got a very Arabian sound. I don't like the lyrics. Just my personal truth.
Yes.
If we did it again, I would love him to completely scrap those lyrics and do new lyrics, but he would never do that anyway. So, but that's just my humble opinion. But I love the sound of it. I think that's the best keyboards Paul's ever done.
Yes,
but then I like Arabian type sounding music. So,
well, yes, absolutely. What studio did you use for that particular?
Those demos, as I say, were done in the Scout Hut in Croydon.
Crikey.
16-track. No producer, just us.
And you got it. Is that kind of? Would you say that was your? If you were to sort of have to save a record from a burning building, would that be the one that you would say, yeah, just take those 6 tracks?
Oh yeah, and maybe Away. There's a few, there's 3 or 4 tracks off each of the other albums that I really like. Obviously Away, you've got to save it. Sunday Morning and Pardon Me and
yes,
Cracking Smile I like, but I would have loved it even more if Trevor had done the vocal performance that he did on the demos.
Yeah. So then, after you've done that, what happens to the band?
Right. Okay. Right. I think there are, with every band or whatever, or even in life, you make a decision. It's like sliding doors moment, isn't it? And your life will change one way or the other.
I know.
I think the first, and obviously I've had 30 years to mull over this. I think the first decision that we made that was wrong was, as I said before, we were on IRS with Miles Copeland, Ian Copeland, they're influential guys, and they were into us. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had us on their label, and they were into us. It came round to, we had to sign a publishing deal. Miles Copeland wanted to sign us for 10 grand. And then along came Warner Chappell, the world's largest publishing company at that point, and offered us 25 grand. And us being naive band members, and we weren't rich by any manner of means, we were only earning about £100 a week off Beggars Banquet or whatever. We saw the pound signs, and we also thought our logic was, oh, they're the world's largest publishing company, so they've got to be good. So we went with Warner Chappell. Miles obviously got pissed off with us, so we weren't on IRS records for the second album. And Warner Chappell, now I know, all they do is just sign up people, stick it on the shelf, and hope that something happens with it. They didn't push us, they didn't do anything. Nothing at all. And that wasn't very good. And I think if we had stuck with Miles, taken the lower offer, Miles was into us, he's obviously got a load of influence, he would have done things. He's got friends, he said, oh, do this, do that, get it on a film soundtrack, blah, 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 blah. I think that was the first mistake we made.
Yeah.
Big mistake. But we trundled on. And then obviously we had the success in Brazil, where we were playing to like 10,000 people a night, or 8,000, or 2 nights of 4,000 people. And we were actually sort of more pop stars rather than rock stars out there, because girls were screaming at us and we had to run to cars. Otherwise, it was like the Beatles, and having a taste of that. But out there, like I said before, we were licensed to different record companies around the world. We were licensed to Warner Brothers, major company. So we're going, well, why is it not happening in the UK for us? We've got more success in the US, not great success, but quite high in the college charts, etc., etc. We're number 2 in Brazil, blah, 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 blah. Why is it not happening for us in the UK? And we came to the conclusion that it's because we weren't on a major label. And we were advised by our advisors, because we still had 2 albums to do of the Beggars Banquet, 3 albums to do of the Beggars Banquet 5-album deal. We were advised by our advisors that if we broke the deal with Beggars Banquet, they would be able to get us a deal with a major label in the UK. So that's what we did. And so we didn't do the 3rd album, and we didn't get a deal with a major record label, because it would have cost them 4 times as much to sign us, because they'd have to pay, break fees for Beggars and all that, as it would to sign another band. And we tried and tried and tried for about 18 months, 2 years to get a major label, couldn't get it, and that was it. You're hot for a little while.
Yes.
And then that's it. Bang, you're done. So after about 2 years, we just called it a day, really. And we would, so we should, in glorious hindsight again, have stuck with Beggars, brought out what I would have thought was been a fantastic 3rd album, at least, as I say, 6 songs on it that are really good, hopefully not overproduced and polished too much.
Yes.
And just carried on and done it like REM did it with Miles Copeland with IRS. They did the 5-album deal with IRS, saw it out, and then went on to a major label. But hindsight's a glorious thing.
Yeah.
So
No, that's tricky, isn't it? Yeah, I know. I remember Miles saying that they did the contract. Yeah, sort of. They wanted to stay with IRS, and then they said, "This is how much Warner wants to pay us," and he said, "Just go and take. You've done what you've done everything you can. You haven't broken any promise, and I wish you all the best, because you've still made them rich. So there you go."
Yeah, well, as a glorious hindsight, we should have stuck with Beggars.
Yeah, because I guess with the band and the sound, you would have kind of been there for that next period of the 90s with the guitar-based kind of songwriting, because suddenly Top of the Pops was filled with all these people who were like songwriters.
Well, it was a different time, wasn't it, to actually sort of break through in the UK. One, there was only one real radio station at the time, Radio 1. And then, so you had all these pluggers that you had to pay that were trying to get you on the playlist at Radio 1. And the major record stores were WH Smith's and Woolworths, and they wouldn't stock anything unless it was in the top 40. So if you hadn't made the top 40, you were selling your bits of plastic in indie record shops. And somehow you had to make that leap. And the only way you can make that leap is to get into the top 40. If you get in the top 40, your records are in WH Smith and then you probably get an appearance on Top of the Pops.
Yes.
It's making that leap. But now it's so different, isn't it? You could just put anything out on the internet. You don't really need a record label, really.
No, just Bandcamp.
It's a completely different world.
No, I know anybody from that period, the 80s, 90s, especially the 80s, just has no idea how it works now. Just go, how does it work? How do young bands get everyone else had, a record label of some description, but also, there was the three weekly music papers like Melody Baker Sounds. And you did have sort of various DJs that people listened to, whether it was Janice Long or Kid Jensen, Tommy Vance. There was that kind of, you went to those people because you knew what they were vaguely going to play. So God knows now. So there you go. So then when you had to quote Joy Division, walk away, what was that? What was that like, sort of suddenly not being in that, in a band at that moment?
It's soul destroying for me. I'd spent 10 years or whatever trying to be in various bands and make it. And then it was a joy to us when we signed a record label deal and, come off the dole. And then to go back on the dole. And at one point, you're getting invites to all these clubs. Oh, come to this club, I can't make it. I'll send a cab for you. Come, And then you're like on the dole and nobody wants to know you. Yes. All these people that you thought were friends aren't friends. It kills you. But maybe it helps your personality, because I'm sure we turned into a bunch of arseholes in a way. A bit up our own arses, a bit arrogant. It makes you human again, I suppose. But no, it's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
No, I mean, most people do have that kind of really weird transition of just walking around the streets thinking, God, the only thing I know is being in the band, organising that gig, sound, tools, and then nothing. And, some people, one or two, say, oh, by the way, you've got this massive tax bill, so you're going to have to sell
I don't know whether I should talk about that.
Right.
But I will try and talk about it in a way that might. We had at the time managers, accountants, etc., supposed to be managing all that stuff. And this was about 3 or 4 years after the band had split. I got this letter from the tax man dropped through my door saying tax demand for the Bolshoi, X amount of money. And we had been advised when we started up to form a partnership. They said that was the most tax efficient thing to do. At the time, being a partnership means that any partner is liable for the full amount. And the other 3 were living in the States. Yes, I've been down that road.
Shit. Yes. No, there was
So I paid it all eventually, and that broke me financially because I had to take out loans, etc. So it's weird that you brought that up. I wasn't going to bring that up.
No. Well, no, it has happened to quite a few bands that you went,
Yeah, but did they have to pay the whole band's thing on their own?
I can't quite remember, but it was quite, it was quite horrendous. That was like suddenly no band, but no equipment, just nothing, literally nothing.
Oh, I had to, gradually I'd sold all my stuff off, and it's
yeah.
It changed me forever. I mean, I'm a lot more, I like to think I'm a lot more humble now. But not a nice feeling. I did do one more band after the Bolshoi, which to indicate how incestuous it is, which was, have you heard of a band called The Godfathers?
Yes.
Right, okay. Now, they had an amazing guitarist, didn't they? He used to throw his guitar around a bit like the guy out of Dr. Feelgood a bit, called Chris Dollimore. He got a band together with Vom out of Doctor and the Medics. See the incestuous bit here?
Yes.
And they had a bass player at the time, and I can't remember what happened to him, but they were going to do an album. And the idea of the album was that it was going to be released on a German label called, ironically, King Size Records. And it was going to be released only in Germany. So the idea was you got a CD in your pocket that you can use as a demo to get a proper deal in the UK or the US. And that was the master plan.
Yes.
For some reason at that time, they didn't have a bass player. So in the studio, I went along and played bass for them. And again, the idea was I played bass because it was basically live tracks with maybe just one or two guitar overdubs and vocal overdubs, but pretty much bass, drums, guitar was all laid down live, which is not the normal way of recording, even in those days. But the idea was probably that Chris would go along and re-record the bass tracks afterwards. But it didn't turn out that way. And then we had the CD in our pockets, and we went and did a little tour of Germany. Not, big places. Again, that's getting back to basics. No roadies or anything like that. Just the three of us. So you got to pack up your own gear at the end of the gig, etc., etc. Take it back to basics. And I think it was the last gig. I was getting impatient for Vom to leave. And a traps case, if you know what that is, one of those cases that's got all the cymbal stands, etc. So it's basically a box full of metal. And I grabbed at it, and I could feel my back going. I went, and I was getting bolder and bolder and bolder. By that time, I was wearing a bandana all the time because my hairline's going back. You know how rock musicians do it. No names mentioned. Who wear bandanas all the time these days. And I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Oh, I actually got sacked from the Brotherland, and they brought in someone else because I was too tall. But that was it. I was done with that. That was it. That was music, me done and dusted. But the album is around if you want to hear it. I had no writing stake on it. It's all their songs. I just played bass on it, and I enjoyed it because it was very rocky. And it was good. It was good, and it's you can probably find it on eBay or whatever. It's called Nightmares and Dreams.
Brotherland.
Yep.
On King Size Records. Yes. Yep. I guess it's on Discogs, but there's no clip. There's no YouTube clip. So anyway, I think
there are actually.
Are there?
Yeah, right. But the trouble is, there's a million bands called the Brotherland.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, I know, slightly dodgy at times. But then 2015. Was it the case that you had this massive box set brought out to the band? So what at that stage were the band talking to each other? Saying this is what we should do.
Weirdly enough, Beggars decided to bring that out. They knew where I lived because they were paying me royalties or whatever. They didn't even send me a copy of it. I had to buy it off Amazon for $15.99. But I was pleased that they did because I thought those demos for that Country Life thing had got lost. And there they were again. And I remember being very proud of those demos, and to hear them again, it was worth the $15.99 for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, at least they got out there into the public arena, those songs. So I was quite pleased about that. And the fact that Beggars even thought, they could make some money out of it. 2015, how many years? It's about 25 years after we'd finished or something like that.
Yes. Blimey. So you played no more sort of music?
No. After the Brotherland, I gave up music altogether, totally disillusioned with the music industry. I was totally disillusioned with music, actually. I think I had a minor breakdown. I couldn't listen to music for 3 years. No music at all, anything. And then I've gradually got back into it. But now I listen to music in a different way. Don't dissect everything as a musician, going, oh, the drums are this, the bass line's this. But I listen to music as a whole, I can do, and appreciate it the way that, what's the best expression? Non-musicians do.
Yes.
They listen to music as a whole. They don't go, oh, the drums are this, the bass line's that, the guitars are that, the mix is wrong, etc., etc. They just listen to a piece of music and as a song. And
yes.
I started to appreciate music that way.
And then your daughter started playing music. And did you think, oh, Jesus, don't do that?
I did. Yeah, absolutely. And I still do, because, as I say, she's training as a doctor. She obviously would like to make it big in music thing. She's done some stuff on radio and blah, blah, blah. And as I say, doing the gigs, etc. She would obviously like to make it as a pop star, rock star, whatever you want to call it. And I would go, even if you do make it, which the odds are against you, the odds are also against you maintaining that. I know so many people that have made it, for example, like Jesus Jones or whatever, who used to be a fan of the Bolshoi, ironically.
Yes.
Big in America, but what happened to them? Just disappeared.
Yeah. Well, most bands, if they do, have
a shelf life. Yeah.
Have a 5-year moment, and they can't come out with that next album, and their fans have slightly moved on because they've got to get their lives. And it's a bit like that album that they bring out, and that tour is suddenly like, where is everyone? Actually, they're kind of not here anymore. So it's kind of weird. It's like, if you can come back in 5 or 10 years' time, that might be a good idea. But at the moment, no one, because there's that kind of new wave comes. This is my theory.
Well, yes. But, there's also the bands that carry on forever and ever and ever. The Rolling Stones, for example, are a prime example. They carry on. Pink Floyd even.
And U2, bizarrely.
Radiohead, U2. Now, I love U2 for a lot of reasons. Not necessarily all because of their music, some of which I like and some of it I don't. But at least they experiment. They have the U2 sound, but they play around and they try different things. And also, they are a real band. And there are very, very few real bands around. And what I mean by that is they all started together. They haven't had one lineup change. And as far as I'm aware, they divide the money up equally.
Yes, this is true.
And you tell me another band that's done that. Very hard.
I think I hate to say it, I think James did as well for their
right.
But they're not quite in the same league. But I think they also sort of did that thing of just going, we'll just not have this conversation, we'll just divide it amongst ourselves. But no, but I don't think there is anybody else. I think it was.
I think Coldplay might be doing that.
I think REM are the other band who did that. I think they just said four members, four ways. But I might be wrong. But
but even they had a few lineup changes, didn't they? I think.
Oh, I think the bass player, wasn't it? But generally, I think also with U2, because again, I thought they're okay and not that bothered. But what I do appreciate is that they kept going. They and you just think you four guys must have had moments where you just thought, I could kill each other.
But the other band that was big at the same time as them and playing Wembley Stadium at the same time was Simple Minds.
Yes, I was going to say Simple Minds.
And then again, it's incestuous. I won't tell you why or how I got to meet him because that's a bit personal. But a very good friend of mine is Mel Gaynor, the drummer, well, one of the drummers, in my opinion, the best and the main drummer of Simple Minds, Mel Gaynor. And, Simple Minds were doing Wembley Stadium the same time as U2. Simple Minds are still going, but they're doing the summer festivals and stuff like that. U2 are still going, and they're still playing Wembley Stadium.
Yes.
The Simple Minds have so many lineup changes and this and that and the other. It's just basically Jim Kerr and the guitarist, really. And Mel joined them back a few years ago, so I went to see him a few times.
But they have a female drummer now, don't they?
Yeah.
And Echo and the Bunnymen have tried, but they're sort of chugging along, aren't they?
But I think the point I'm trying to make is that Simple Minds didn't have that ethos of being a real band. A lot of their early songs were written by the bass player, for whatever reason he went. And the money's not divvied up equally, etc. It's not just about money, but it's being a band, a true band, a real band, not just a bunch of musicians standing on a stage or recording an album, but a real band. You go through the highs, the lows, the laughs, the fights, everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I sort of have huge respect for those people who kept it going, because they also looked at the big picture and thought, A, the solo work is going to be rubbish and no one will buy it. B, I don't want to get a job, a proper job with a line manager.
A lot of bands, the main man does get his head turned, doesn't he, to go solo? When I say he, could be a woman. And some of them have success, some of them don't. But Trevor, for example, he's done various things. The band he did after the Bolshoi, when he formed a new band called Kite, had drummer. Remember I mentioned Praxis right at the beginning? Had the drummer from Praxis, and he got Jasper from Then Jericho on bass, who's a very good bass player. And they had same management who were managing the Stranglers at the time. So they had management. They did a demo album. But I went to see them in the studio sometimes, saw some of the gigs. It's just, you can get a group of people together. It doesn't make it a band. You don't also have to be the greatest bass player, drummer, guitarist, or whatever. It's the four people gel, the chemistry, etc., get their own sound. It just didn't work. And Trevor hasn't done anything bigger than the Bolshoi in his career, and he's had another 30 years to do it.
Yes. Yeah, no, I was thinking of the Clash actually with Paul Simeon and that band. I mean, especially with Topper. I mean, they were amazing. But once that all sort of went,
you
wouldn't want to hear him. Was it Cut the Crap, the last album? Anyway,
I don't know.
It wasn't one that no one wants to listen to, really.
No, I love the Clash, especially the early stuff.
Yes. That was it, really. So if you could have whispered something to your 16-year-old self who was starting out, just a few bullet points, is there anything in particular you might have just said, oh yes, I would have done that or do this?
Yeah, I'd say take the publishing deal with Miles Copeland.
Yes.
And don't break your record deal with Beggars Banquet is what I would say. And be true to yourselves. If we say we're going to go in to do an album that sounds that's more live, don't get carried away with all the technology and whatever. But some people like that album. It's not my favorite, I must admit, but this is my truth, as Prince Harry would say.
This is true. Yeah. And you know, sometimes you have to get those things out of the way. I know. I remember when Big Country, I think one of their second or third albums, they suddenly, you know, the production was like, wow, you've gone over the top. You could strip back for the next album, I guess. But
bands I like that do have an incredible production, like people like Tears for Fears, the production on that is just incredible. But it sounds great, but that's Tears for Fears. We are not like that. Or we could have probably got like that, but it wasn't what we were or what we said we were going to do at the time. And as I say, Country Life, the way it's recorded there, it's just my humble opinion, is more like we were and more true to us, and stripping it back, but some great songs. And that's, I think if we brought that out, that would have got us back on track maybe, but not overproduced, please.
Yes.
Or maybe no producer. and no fair like computers either.
Yes, this is true. Well, I'll have a check those songs you've recommended actually, and also I'll have to sort of find out when your daughter's playing any gigs in Norwich, because that'll be very exciting.
Well, I've got your email now, so
yes,
I'll email you them whenever she's doing them. She goes in fits and spurts doing gigs. Sometimes she does them, 3 or 4 in a month, and then she might not do any for 6 months.
Yeah, it's depending when she has an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there you go. But look, then Nick, thank you ever so much for this. It's been amazing, and yes, all the best for the year ahead. It's always interesting.
I'll probably upset a few people, but hey ho.
That's life. Actually, you haven't said anything libelous anyway, so that's good. So yes, but I don't think there was anything. Trust me, there was nothing.
Well, thank you for still liking what we did all those years ago, and I love it that people are still into it. I love that you can go on Facebook and see people in Southeast Asia doing cover versions of our stuff. I'll get worried when one of them does it better than us, but it's just, that makes me proud, seeing other people doing covers of our songs.
Yeah.
Around the world. We never even went to Asia.
I know.
It's just, that makes me proud, and people still appreciate it after all this time.
Yeah,
I'm
amazed you never went to Japan, actually, because
no, it was probably on our agenda. We did have some sort of red floppy single released in Japan, and I came out as a plastic top in a packet of cornflakes in Argentina. But then Argentina, think about this, we played there 5 years after the Falklands.
Yes.
And I'm not sure, but I think we were either the first or one of the first English bands to play there. We played in Poland when the Iron Curtain was still up. 3 months later, the Iron Curtain came down. So I think what they should do is get us to play in all these conflict zones, because we were a band of peace.
Yeah, I have to say, I've been watching videos of the live, of you live, and brilliant
Shame the quality's not so good, but
nice clips. I mean, really nice, great dynamic on stage. It was good. I mean, and everyone's so good looking. There you go.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you. You should see us all now. Not quite the same.
I know, but everyone looks so beautiful. Anyway, look, I'll let you go to bed. But thank you ever so much, Nick. And I will send you the link, and then you can have a listen as well if you want.
No, it's cool. I'm always pleased to talk about myself.
No, but thank you again. And look, I'll check out all these other tracks you mentioned.
Yeah, please do. Let me know what you think of them.
I will.
And be brutally honest as well. If you like them, great. If you don't, tell me.
Well, actually, I have been, not just with your band, but a lot of bands. I've just been amazed with the quality. It's just, but then back in the 80s, God, without starting off again, if you read something that you went, oh, I'd love to listen to that, you weren't always able to go and listen to the damn thing without buying it for $4.99.
Exactly my point. You had to trundle down to the indie shop and hope
they had a copy.
Yeah,
and then take a punt for £4.
But now you can go on the internet and you don't have to buy the whole album. You can just stream a track. You don't even have to buy it. you know.
We had to, it was a whole gig, a whole gig. So there's lots of little bands, not little bands, but bands who had that 5 years, 3 albums, and you thought, oh, actually, I miss them. But then you listen to them now and you think, oh, they're amazing. I wish now I'd went to more gigs when I was younger, which was kind of, at the time I thought went to lots, but now I think, no, I should have gone to more because they were just so much. But then I suppose you don't know at the time that I don't know. You just don't know at the time, do you? But yet now you look back and think, God, I wish I'd seen that band. I wish I'd seen that band. Not worried about it so much, but,
I did, before even when our band was going, I used to go and see a lot of other people at the time, but I used to get in for free then as well. So it was nice. You see a load of bands.
I know. And when you look at the posters, it's like 3 bands or 290, 250. And you went, oh my God. How much, because now we just go, oh.
Well, yeah, it's frightening, isn't it?
It's like 35 quid. It's like, I'm not that bothered. And I wouldn't mind, but 35 quid for a band.
I can't make out because everyone says, oh, they make money on touring. Well, we certainly didn't make money on touring. We used to lose money on touring.
Yes.
And we had a bit of crappy merchandise as well, T-shirts and caps and that sort of stuff. And flogging that, but that didn't cover the costs at all.
No. I think that was more the 90s and years touring. But then for 250 to get in, there's never going to be a lot of money, was there?
No.
Yeah, some T-shirts for £5, Yeah, that's changed. Anyway, look, I'll let you go to bed. But thanks a lot, Nick. Take care.
Cool.
Take care.
In touch. Keep in touch.
I will.
Right.
Take care. Cheers.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
And that, dear listener, is the end of the interview. A massive thanks to Nick for giving me the time for that. This has been the C86 show. This has been David Eastaugh. If you want to contact me for some nice reason, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just do C86 show. Also, these interviews have all been archived. Aren't you lucky? So you can find those on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. It's true. Anyway, have a great week. Stay safe.